All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen, here we are, the day after Christmas, high noon. How about that? High noon. Uh, this high noon, gentlemen, has me all messed up. I keep wanting to say uh, 11 p.m. because I'm used to working in the p.m.s. Now we're down here in the a.m.s. Of course, it is the p.m. now. It's high noon, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So it's the 26th of December, and I'm still just as confused as I was on the 24th of December. So it makes no difference. Espinlab is still confused. And we have with us today Mr. Ed Temple. Certainly, he is I was going to say no surprise. But Ed is always a surprise. Trust me. Uh, and we have our good friend Randy Osborne. Randy, it's good to see you this morning.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you as well.
And I hope you guys had a very Merry Christmas.
Merry as always.
All right. And there's Randy again. We had lost him for a split second. All right. We must do this, fellas. It's only 30 seconds, but we have to bring Dude on here.
Bring him on.
Dude has to come on, and Dude has to earn his keep. He's been slacking lately. We haven't been putting him to work, but here comes Dude for the opening of the George Espinlab show. And there he is.
That's a well-trained dude.
I'm telling you. We told him when we hired him here at the Funny Farm. You have now we have a longer. We made him work longer than that, but we only got 30 seconds of them up there. We've got more of them in the background. We're going to bring on later, but we told him you have to earn your keep, and he said okay. And so we gave him an audition. He performed. Everybody here at the Funny Farm, naturally, they all liked him, and so there he is, gentlemen. The last three shows that we had scheduled. One, we had severe technical difficulty. The second one, we had an equipment difficulty on the other end, and the last one, we had an emergency that led to an individual having to go to the hospital. But thank the good Lord, she is all right now. So that was like three stingers in a row, and Dude, he hasn't been playing. I mean, we keep feeding him, but we told him he has to come to work today, so he did. But it's good to have you guys here. It's good to be back, and I think we're going to have a fantastic show. Ed, I suppose everyone in the family treated you well.
Not really, but I think I got a pair of socks for Christmas, if that's what you mean.
Well, at least that's something. It's the thought that counts.
Yeah, except they were Michigan socks. I'm not a Michigan fan, so.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
Randy, and I hope everyone treated you well.
They did recently, although a couple weeks ago, I was rear-ended and totaled my car and had to recuperate from that.
Oh my!
Back and neck and such. But I'm on the mend and replaced the vehicle with a newer, better one. So I guess I can't complain too much. God is good.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. We just never know, do we?
Nope.
Gentlemen, I understand, and I will be so excited someday, and hopefully soon, that I can say this here in the state of Delaware. But I'm so excited for you guys because something new is taking place there in the state of Ohio as it pertains to school vouchers. Ed, you want to tackle that?
Well, I can tackle it to an extent. we have. I just found out this year, even with our own kids, that our kids have been going to the school that they're at that is has quite a few kids on that take advantage of the vouchers, and we were not one of them. But Ohio has expanded the ability to use vouchers, including to for students that are already in schools that they got into, that they have been paying on, that didn't originally have vouchers, are able to get vouchers if their school is currently on the list of schools that qualify as voucher schools. And so it's much easier to get it in Ohio than it was before.
Now, is that the school they're coming from or the school they're going to that they have to qualify as far as
Yeah,
voucher school?
the school that they're either, well, it's threefold. It's either the school that they're, let's say they're at a failing school, or if their homeschool is a failing school.
Okay.
Even if they're already attending a school that's not failing, they still qualify to get the voucher. So as
Good.
you would know, with two kids at the school, we were that was when you're scraping to break even, it's real nice to be able to have the ability to use my tax money for the purpose that we felt is the best place or the best fit for our kids, instead of having to pay twice for our kids' education. Now we only have to pay once, believe it or not.
I've done that in the past myself. I have 5 kids. We've homeschooled some, we've private schooled some, and we've public schooled some. And wow, it's a costly endeavor. It takes a lot of a commitment, but your children are precious, and we were more than happy to make the sacrifices at those different times.
Hey Ed, you mentioned uh, explain this to me if you will. There is a failed school list,
Hmm.
correct?
Yes.
And then you mentioned if the private school, the Christian school, is on a list. What list is that?
Okay, well, that's a different list. So the private or a Christian school that's private, if they're on the list, that they're on the list as schools that you can attend that are voucher schools. Not every school accepts vouchers. Some choose not to.
Hmm. Is there any hooks on the end of that voucher?
Aha! Glad you mentioned that, and that's why some schools won't take it. And that's the point, and that's the danger too, because what you have the potential of is the private Christian schools. It sounds like a great option to be able to get students the opportunity to get a Christian education. But on the other hand, there's always the catch. There's always on the other end of the stick criteria, and so that becomes a problem, and that's why some schools refuse to take it. Which is why there are some people that say, you know what, instead of doing vouchers, why don't we just do, other programs like, let's say, a tax, tax credits, or just the money follows the student. That would be my thing. Would be the money follow the student, because with no strings attached, none, zero. Currently, the president of the United States just did an executive order and is directing his Secretary of Education to get the federal government's hands out of education more and more. Of course, for me, it would be 100% out, but more and more is a lot better than what it is right now. Right now, they're the federal government, the state, even for that matter. There's too many people's hands in the pot, and they tend to make things worse, not better.
Is there hooks attached to this new vouchers law that's coming down the road?
I don't know if there's any new hooks. I'm gonna find somebody to come on the show to talk about that. But there's already hooks. The hooks that are already there. There's certain kids you're not allowed. They would call it discriminating, and others would call it accepting people that go against the values of the school.
Hmm.
For example, so a kid, if a kid were to come in and you would accept them, and let's say you find out that some of their values, for example, don't coincide with the mission of a Christian school or a private school for that matter. Well, once you accept the voucher money, you don't have a leg to stand on.
Right.
So, in other words, they effectively, by all the, it's kind of like, I don't want to call it fascism because it's not that much. Their hands aren't in it that much, but they've opened up the door to, to at some level, micromanage the voucher schools. It's not as much as, let's say, the public school, or not as much as the charter school, but it's still, once they open up that door, just a matter of time before a different administration or a different political party takes over the state, and next thing you know, they're effective. They may not take away the options, but effectively you can take away the options by controlling, the situation in the schools of those that accept the voucher money.
It is that control, it's that word control, right, Randy?
Absolutely.
That when Ed was sitting telling us, I call them hooks. They're more like booby traps. Because a lot of times you don't see them until it's too late. They go off. They go off just as you're ready to step on a certain parcel of ground. Bad things happen, and I'm all for the money follows the student. Period. No strings, no hooks, no booby traps, no trap doors, none of those things. Uh, when did I see Dr. Kent is here? Excuse me, gentlemen. And hello, Dr. Kent. How are you? I see him.
I see him too.
Hello.
Are you there, Dr. Kent?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I can no longer hear you.
You can no longer hear us.
No,
We hear you loud and clear. You
no,
hear him?
no audio at all, guys.
You hear him good, Ed?
Yeah, I hear him perfectly clear.
Randy?
Oh,
hear him?
okay. There, I can hear something.
I hear Dr. Kent. Yes.
Yeah,
Are we there yet?
I am here. I didn't know if you want to be on video or just audio. I got to sign a paper real quick, and then I'm ready to discuss whatever you want, if I can help.
All righty, sir. Good. Sir, we're all tuned in loud and clear on December 26th. All right. It's good to have you, Dr. Kent.
Well, thank you for having me.
I can see the weather seems fairly nice down your way.
Well, 75, Christmas, about right.
Wow.
He really knows how to hold it, guys. You know what I mean?
Wow. Must be nice.
Let's see. It's not too bad today. It's probably about 45, 46 right now.
10
I don't know
below,
what
huh?
them fellows I don't know what them guys out in Ohio got.
Better than usual.
Wow. Well, that's a great one. I'm glad somebody's having 75-degree weather. Anyhow.
No, you're losing you again.
Are you losing us again?
Are you on the air?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can you hear us, Dr. Kent?
Yes, sir. I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Randy,
Yes, sir.
I can.
As-
That a minute.
we were discussing last time that rock formation. And excuse me, I'm no scientist. I'm no science teacher. So if I use this old Espanola slang, bear with me.
Understand.
When we were talking about the rock formation and how you say that tells the true story, could you explain that to us again?
Well, there's a lot more than what I was just barely touching on, but what I was talking about last time was what I call bioturbation. And when you look at the ground around you, outside your home or wherever you are, you'll see that living things will change the layers. You have roots of trees. They give off a little bit of carbon dioxide. It dissolves in the water of the rain and makes carbonic acid, and it will take and make holes where there weren't holes before. And you've got also burrowing animals, fossorial creatures that will dig. And the soil just ends up getting mixed up, whether it's a groundhog or whether it's worms, you're going to have a mixing of the layers just because of life. And that's absent, remarkably absent in many of the rock layers of the earth, most of the rock layers of the earth, indicating that they were laid down quickly rather than allowing living things to change them before the next layer was formed.
There, I think I got better audio now. Go ahead.
All righty. So let me ask you this, Randy, and Ed. You can jump in here too, and then we're going to get Dr. Kent's viewpoint on this. When you teach that in public school to your
Yeah.
to your classes,
Yes.
do you teach it in a way that the biblical creation is expanded on or taught, or just how do you go about that?
Well, the problem with most of the textbooks used in public schools is they're very one-sided, very opinionated, very biased. They tend to only show evidence that favors their theories, their pet theories. They don't want to include things like bioturbation being absent. They don't want to include things about erosion being absent from sedimentary rock layers. They don't want to include things like Hawaiian rocks being dated at 21 million years when they were seen to have formed 200 years ago. On and on and on. You can just go on for long periods of time. But I just add additional evidence, and I also, when we read various sections of textbooks, I ask now, was that an observation or conclusion? And they say, well, that's a conclusion. Well, what evidence is it based on? And then many times there's an absence of evidence. So this is the theory of the person who wrote this. Yes, it's their personal belief. But, rarely do they bring in the fact, for example, that the Kaibab upwarp near Grand Canyon was bent before it had a time to harden. It didn't crack when it bent. It was soft when it bent. And the river would have to flow uphill to cut that to cut the Grand Canyon. But rivers don't usually flow uphill, so there's some issues in saying that billions and billions of years caused this little by little. Darwin believed that because he was tutored by Lyell, and Lyell believed that everything's natural, it's material. There's only things that are real are space, time, energy, and matter. But that's not a fact. That's just their belief. And we shouldn't really be teaching people's beliefs to the exclusion of scientific evidence.
That's kind of hypocritical, isn't it? Because
it is, but a lot of people don't know it. They're unaware because that's all they've been taught.
It's amazing how they can say that Christians are hypocrites,
Yeah.
but yet when it comes to the other side, we're teaching their theory or their conclusion.
Right.
And yeah.
And I don't mind teaching their theory, their conclusion, but when you don't include contradictory evidence that's rampant, polystrate fossils going through multiple layers, and they say it takes millions of years to form the layers, but yet there's no erosion. How is that possible? And how did the thing not rot before it got buried little by little over millions of years? Why are quaternary rocks buried underneath the Cretaceous ancestors? It doesn't make any sense. So there has to be additional thinking. It's not a done deal.
So there we get back to that thing again. Not teaching where someone can think on their own, but teaching what someone wants them to think. That's how it all fits in. Dr. Hovind, these rock formations, I was telling Randy before the show, when he mentioned it the last time he was on, that just fascinated me. And that's why I asked him to expound on that and how he teaches it in public school. From a biblical standpoint, how can like Randy just said, they said a rock in Hawaii was so many X number of years old. when it's really 250 years old. How and why do they do that?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. There's only two theories, two belief systems. One, there is a God and he made everything. And two, there is no God, so everything made itself somehow, some natural process without a creator. And some people want so desperately to believe there is no God, they'll grasp at any idea that would leave God out. So the Bible clearly teaches God made the world about 6,000 years ago, and then there was a big flood in the days of Noah, 4,400 years ago. I taught Earth Science 15 years. I don't think anybody argues. There is certainly enormous evidence of stratification around the world. I mean, there are layers of sediment all over the place. 70% of the Earth is covered by sedimentary rock, which would be laid down by water. The other 30% probably got washed away as the flood water ran off. It was covered by sediments, and then it washed it back down to bare rock during the last few weeks of the flood. But during Noah's flood, if the Earth were covered in water, the tides, of course, would still be going up and down because of the moon. But now you have a real problem because there's nothing to interrupt the tides. Right now, the tide starts coming up and it bangs into South America or North America or Africa. The tide gets interrupted in its harmonics. So people that study harmonics can tell you if the Earth were smoothed out, just right now, push the mountains down, smooth out the Earth, the water would be 1.5 miles deep everywhere, 8,000 feet. And the tides would be 200-foot tidal change. Right now, the highest tide is up in the Bay of Fundy, Canada, about 50 foot. Pensacola, it's about a 4-foot tidal change. Well, if you had a 200-foot tidal change every 6 hours and 12 minutes, now hold it. If the water's coming up 200 feet in Lenox, Alabama, where you have Dinosaur Adventureland, where'd all that water be coming from? It has to be coming sideways to keep the bump full at the same speed the Earth is turning. So the water would be rushing sideways at this latitude, almost 900 miles an hour. The water would go sideways at 900 miles an hour for a couple hours. And then once you reach full tide, high tide, it would stop, sit calmly for an hour, and then start rushing the other way as the bump drains, if that makes any sense. We have little demonstrations about that at our science camp here, Dinosaur Adventureland. But the water going sideways every 6.5 hours would make thousands of layers of strata in a matter of a few days or weeks. And all over the world, gravel is rounded, like it was in a rock tumbler. And nobody's asking the question, hey, why is gravel rounded? It was in a rock tumbler called Noah's flood. Wow. Once you reach high tide, at high tide, the water would sit still for maybe an hour, and then all the small stuff would settle out, and you would get a layer of clay. I live in a gravel pit. Somebody gave us 140 acres, an old gravel pit. There are 7 layers of gravel. There's gravel, sand, clay, gravel, sand, clay. It keeps repeating over and over. It goes all the way to North Carolina. From here to North Carolina, there are at least 7, maybe 10 consecutive layers of gravel, sand, and clay. And all the rocks are rounded. Now, they tell the kids in school those layers are different ages, which is absolute baloney. You know, they told me when I was in school, the top layer is younger than the bottom layer. I say, really? Where did the top layer come from? Outer space?
Exactly.
All the layers are the same age.
Nobody
They just got shuffled up. That's all.
Good, good thinking. Good thinking.
Yeah, from outer space. So during the flood in the days of Noah, you would get thousands of feet of sediment containing bazillions of dead things. And then at the end of the flood, it says in Psalm 104, toward the end of the flood, the mountains arose, the valleys sank down, and the water rushed off. Well, if the mountains lifted up, just like Randy said, the layers would be bent, but there would be no fracture marks, internal fracture marks. Right. They were bent while they were all soft. And then they hardened into hard bent layers. If they were hard first and then bent, they would be fractured or cracked, and they're simply not. So, but see, the Bible says in 1 Peter, the scoffers are ignorant, or 2 Peter chapter 3, the scoffers are ignorant of the flood. That flood explains all the geology of the world today, the stratification, the fossils. The Grand Canyon probably formed in a week. If you plugged up Grand Canyon right now, that would take a lot of dirt, by the way. But if you could plug up Grand Canyon, a giant lake would back up on the north side called Grand Lake. The lake is gone. It doesn't exist, but the beach lines are still there. It'd be a lake 5,000 feet deep. Once it got over the top, it started washing that canyon out probably in a week, because once the water starts moving one direction, it becomes liquid sandpaper. It's not just water, it's picking up junk and debris and rocks. And there's at least four things that happen: erosion, abrasion, liquefaction, and cavitation. All of those would happen with rapidly moving water, and you would cut right through solid rock. Like, well, they use water now to cut steel. They have water jets that cut right through steel. So Google dam break at Dinosaur Adventureland. 2 years ago, this Christmas Eve, 2 years and 2 days ago, we had a little dam we built to hold water while we fixed the big dam. I cut a notch in the top with my shovel, and in 8 minutes, in 4 minutes, the gap was 8 feet wide, and in 7 minutes, the dam was gone. It washed it out. There's just overwhelming evidence that Grand Canyon and all canyons really formed very rapidly, a couple of weeks max, I would say. Okay.
We see good evidence of that up in the state of Washington, where the Toutle River cut out
Right.
miniature Grand Canyon, about 1/40th the size of Grand Canyon, and they watched it form right in front of them in a week. And there was stunning silence from the scientific community of, oh my goodness, it doesn't take a little bit of water and a lot of time necessarily. It could be a lot of water and a very little amount of time to make something like the Grand Canyon.
Well, see, here's the thing. The thing that's at risk is their lifestyle. I spoke at Berkeley University, and nobody would debate me, so I just spoke there. About 1,000 people in the room at Berkeley years ago. I just said, look, creation's true. Evolution is dumb. It's not true. It didn't happen. Afterwards, I was out at the sales table, people buying my videos, and this big old football player came up to the table. He was angry. He said, evolution is a fact. I said, calm down, son, calm down. I said, let me ask you a question. Suppose what I said tonight was true. Suppose the creation story was true. If you chose to believe that and admit that, would that affect your lifestyle any? And he was real quiet for almost a minute. Finally, he said, that would change everything. I said, I know. Now, let me ask you a question, son. Do you believe in evolution because you really have some scientific evidence, or because you like the freedom it gives you from God's rules? He said, I believe in evolution because I'm horny. I said, well, son, every male of every species, from termites to whales, understands that one. But that's not a reason to reject the creator. Hello. This creation evolution is this gets right at the heart of their lifestyle. That's what the problem is.
That reminds me of something Jesus said. He said, light came into the world, but men preferred darkness because their deeds were evil.
Yeah, exactly right.
Wow. Ed, I've known you for quite a while, but and maybe you told me, and you know Espinal, he can forget in a heartbeat. What subjects do you teach?
Actually, I teach. I teach Algebra 2, Calculus, any math. I also teach social studies too. So any history, psychology, sociology, you name it.
Now, Ed, you're in the Christian school. Randy, you're in the public school.
Yes, sir.
And Dr. Hovind, you are what term can I give you? You
hated on the internet by the atheists.
you won't an atheist, right? Don't
yeah, we have whopping atheist every Wednesday night here at our Dinosaur Adventureland.
Somehow
whack 'em.
That stuck with me. Some things stick with Espinal that don't stick with other people. I don't know if I should apologize for that or not. But Randy and Ed, let me ask you this. When you're teaching, does from the students on their own, do they have questions for you that relates to the creation, to the power of God? Do they come up with these questions, Randy, Ed?
They surely do. They surely do. And the more information you can give them that doesn't just fit the party line, the more often they come up with those kind of questions. You know, Ed mentioned the fact that he teaches calculus. Isaac Newton spent a lot of effort coming up with a calculus, and it turns out that at the bottom of the fossil record, there are creatures, trilobites, with extremely complicated eyes. They're supposed to be simple at the bottom and get complicated at the top, but at the very bottom, we've got eyes of a trilobite that can only be described using calculus. And that just seems counterintuitive, that the most complicated eyes should be at the bottom of the fossil record, but yet there they are. Now, present that information and ask people to think about it, and lo and behold, they come up with some new ideas besides atheistic, materialistic, naturalistic evolution.
Ed, do you run into any of those situations where the
Yeah. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of times it's because of a movie or something that comes out. I think a while back, Passion of the Christ came out, and that generated a lot of conversation. But and then other times there's been I used to have kids come in even at the public school. They'd come in at lunchtime. I would probably have 20 Muslim kids. They'd love talking about religion. So I had a chance. I said, "You take out your Quran, and I'll take out the Bible, and we'll discuss it." And it was very interesting. And so they were very willing to have that discussion. Now the public school system, the way it's designed, is you could talk about every religion except Christianity in a positive way. And so it's unfortunate because here we are. We're trying to find truth. And of course, the truth, as far as I'm concerned, is in the Bible. But they had a lot of trouble with some of their contradictions. But the point is, though, we can have conversation without wanting to, get upset with each other and shut down school, kick the teacher out of the building, for example. So yeah, it comes up quite a bit. I mean. It's more popular at sometimes rather than others, but at the Christian school, it's we're talking about it all the time. So that's the freedom we have, and I have to always look over my shoulder, like I have to remind myself I'm at a Christian school, because as soon as I mentioned the word God, I knew. I was like, oh, when I was in the public school, I'd say God. Next thing you know, I'm called down to the office. So and so I still have a trigger. Like I always caution myself every time I'm doing it, just because of bad habit. But it's where I'm at now. It's free to talk about. But in the past, it had to come up in they had to bring it up. Let's put it that way.
Ed Temple, please report to the principal's office. You still hear that ringing in your ear?
Well, I put a part in my book that one time I had a AP history class I was teaching, and it just so happened that we were reading an excerpt from a book, and it happened to have a scripture on the bottom of it that I didn't even know was there. And I got called in the office and said, you're teaching religion. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, there's a scripture right there. I said, well, that's news to me. I didn't even know it was there. And so they made a big deal about that. And I've come to find out years later, it was still in my file 15 years later.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
Dr. Hovind, you touched on something. I think I am more anxious to learn now. I mean, I'm 71 years old, but I have this thirst, this hunger that I just can't get enough. And you mentioned that it's a lifestyle. This evolution thing, it's a lifestyle. How did this all take? How did this happen? I mean, these so-called scientists say, okay, the Earth is X billion years old, or this happened so many billions of years ago. How did all this stuff happen? I mean, it's so simple when you look at it from one side, but how did all this other stuff get mixed in there? I don't even know if I'm asking the right way or the right question, but does that make any sense? Am I asking the right thing?
I can help on that.
Well, ever since Adam and his own way going on with, started in the garden and said, yea, hath God said. He started his career questioning God's words. And then he said, no, you won't die. Then, of course, he's denying God's words. And then he outright said, Eve, you get to become God. You eat off that tree, you get to become God. And that's what the whole idea of evolution is about, moving and progressing. And someday we get to be God. Actually, right now, we're God of the universe because there's nothing higher than man, according to evolution. Of course, you get somebody who believes that, like Adolf Hitler, there's nobody to answer to. He's God. Well, there's no telling what they're going to do. We saw it in history, But yeah, and as far as public schools, my mother and brother both retired from teaching in public school. And people say, should we teach creation in public schools? And I say, hold it, there's a bigger question. Let's back up a step. Should we have public schools? Is the first question. If we're going to have them, then who should decide? Should it be the local parents or should it be some bureaucrat in Washington deciding what they're taught? Our 10th Amendment to our Constitution says, hey, if it's not spelled out in this document, the federal government has to stay out of it. There should be zero federal involvement in the public school system. None. Okay, they have constitutional bans from that. But Randy mentioned about, Ed, about them putting something in teaching religion. Evolution is a religion.
That's right.
It's the only state-supported. We're all being forced to pay for a religion. I harp on that every program I do. Kent Hovind Official on YouTube. Evolution's a religion. You have to believe it happened. There's no evidence. Nobody's ever seen a dog produce a non-dog. Period. They can believe whatever they want to believe, but that's not science. I think for science class, we should exclude origins totally. It's not part of the topic.
Not observable, not repeatable, not verifiable, not falsifiable. Right. That's a problem for science.
Yeah, evolution's a religious belief, and if they want to believe that, fine, but don't force everybody to pay for that to be taught in the school system because it's not part of science. Even if it were true, I tell people it's a completely useless theory, completely useless. There's no value to it at all.
Well, I don't know if this is still the case, though. Mr. Osborne, you may be able to speak to this, but the standards in Ohio for science, at least at one point, 25% of them were geared around the evolution, the concepts in evolution. Is that still the case, or did that go away?
And it's not just evolution. I used to be a younger person, and when I was younger, it seemed like the age of the Earth was doubling, the age of the universe was doubling about every decade. What they found out is the closer they studied things, because in Darwin's day, a cell, what could you know? It just looks like a glob of protoplasm. Mm. But then when you are able to magnify, and now we have electron microscopes, etc., things are so incredibly complicated. They have to simplify like crazy to put things in textbooks. So with the complication, they said, well, this couldn't happen quickly by accident. It must have happened slowly by accident. When I say accident, I mean no intelligence from the outside acting on matter. It's just natural processes, time, space, matter, and energy. And they treat the whole subject as if you had a bunch of pieces of a puzzle, throw them in a dryer and turn it on, it's going to assemble itself. Ridiculous. It just absurd, the conclusions that you have to come to believe the theory of molecules to man evolution.
Dr. Hovind, you just said something. Why have public schools? That struck a nerve. Could you explain that again?
Well, the founders of this country back in the 1700s, they were terrified of big government. They saw what it could do. If a government's big enough to tell you what to do in every area, they're big enough to take away everything you earn, and you end up being a slave back to the children of Israel in Egypt. So the founders were very alert to this situation, and they gave a constitution and the Bill of Rights. And at the last one, number 10, they said, let me spell it out real clearly for the federal government. If it's not spelled out in this document, you do not have authority. You don't assume you have authority. No, you do not have authority unless it's spelled out in this document. And the federal government has some very legitimate purposes they're supposed to serve: protect us from evildoers inside and protect us from evildoers outside. If the enemy attacks us, we better be ready to handle him. But they have no business being involved in education, no business being involved in welfare, no business being involved in drug enforcement. I've never taken drugs. I've never tasted alcohol. I'll be 67 in a couple days. But so But I would legalize all drugs and stop all welfare. If you want to take drugs and hurt your health, I don't care. But you want me to pay for it when you're sick? Now that's my problem. So the federal government simply has no business being involved in education, period. But they get involved by using the dollar as their hook. They give money to the schools and say, if you take this money, you have to follow these rules. There has never been a law against teaching creation or the Bible in schools. Never. There were 2 states that tried to make it mandatory that creation be taught, and the court struck it down. They said, no, you can't make it mandatory. They've never said you can't teach creation in public schools. Now, what they do, though, the ACLU, which is the American Communist Lawyers Union, they will threaten a lawsuit knowing they would lose, but just the threat of a suit makes the average principal panic and back down. And so you can teach creation, you can teach the Bible in every public school in America. There's no reason you can't. But your school board or your state could not pass a law that said it's mandatory to teach this. However, it certainly seems to be mandatory for the kids to learn the evolution religion.
Yes.
Something seriously wrong there.
Ed, your thoughts on that?
He's absolutely right. That we as Christians, we've had a habit of being pushed around, and that's why we have unions for teacher unions. Not all unions, but teacher unions. And I'm not against unions. I'm against unions that are politically only allow for one particular party to have a voice. But we have unions that are, that are far gone. I mean, I've gone to if you just go to a teachers union rally, and then literally their constitution is seems like it comes from. Actually, it does come from the Communist Manifesto, but it comes from the Project 21 from the United Nations. So it is spooky. So their intention is to get God out of there. And when they do talk about God, at least when it's allowed, it's only in a case to minimize God. So creation, for example, is part of Greek mythology unit. Or they at the senior year required reading, they get books that say that all religions are the same, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I don't even I get nervous when public schools are telling kids to learn anything as if it's the truth instead of giving kids information so they make a decision. And so in this case, it just so happens that the information they're forced choicing is things like macroevolution. That's taught not as even a theory, it's taught as a fact. And so I'm talking about in most cases, not obviously in Mr. Osborne's case, but in far too many schools, it's taught as if it's a fact, and kids aren't even asked to decide. The questions that they're given on tests are not open-ended. They are, this is the fact, multiple choice. You better choose the answer they want you to choose. And so that's what's spooky about it, which is, like I said, why I'm a big fan of school choice, because at this point, it seems as if it's impossible to turn the clock back. Meanwhile, while we're waiting on school choice, teachers need to know, like Dr. Hovind has already stated, that they have to stop being trampled over and teach everything and teach all sides, even if they're not even a Christian. The atheist teacher needs to teach both sides, just like a Christian teacher does.
Randy, you have any thoughts?
I do. I think I shared with you last time as I was studying the evolutionary hypothesis that I came up with an apostate's creed and compared it with the Apostles' Creed. Well, I did the same thing concerning the Lord's Prayer. So, George, I don't think I've had a chance to share that with you yet. I think this might be an appropriate time to do that.
Please do.
Now, this is not my belief, but this is a kind of prayer that the makers of our biological textbooks would be coining if they were making a prayer. Our Father, which art Charles Darwin, famous be thy name. Environmental pressure come, natural selection be done, on earth and in the water. Give us this day an adaptation, and reproduce our best as we eliminate the competition. Lead us not into predation, and deliver us from extinction. For thine is the kingdom, and the phylum, and the story, ever since the Big Bang.
Love it.
That's not the beliefs I wanted for my kids, so I taught my children more than what was in the textbooks.
Right.
Yeah.
Dr. Hovind, I need to ask you this. Maybe we touched on it last time. Dinosaurs. All kids love dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs. Everybody loved dinosaurs. But
Me too.
doesn't the scientists, and I use that quote unquote, don't they have it wrong when it comes to dinosaurs?
Absolutely. Well, the Bible teaches very clearly that the world is about 6,000 years old, and God made everything, capital E, everything, in 6 days. Well, that would mean dinosaurs had to live with man. The Bible also teaches in Genesis chapter 5 that the people lived to be 900 years old before the flood came. Well, it's a simple biological fact that reptiles never stop growing. Reptiles grow all their life, so before the flood came, if the people are living to be 900, the reptiles are living longer and getting huge. So the dinosaurs were simply big lizards that lived with Adam and Eve. And then Noah would have taken them on the ark, probably babies, just be sure to get a pink one and a blue one, which is kind of hard to tell with reptiles, but apparently they can tell, which is all that's important. And then after the flood, people killed most of them. They called them dragons. All through history, there are thousands of stories and legends of people killing dragons. In the book of Job, he describes an animal called behemoth that has a tail like a cedar tree. Some reference Bibles put a note in the column saying this is an elephant, hippopotamus. I said, you got to be kidding. Go look at the tail on an elephant, hippopotamus. It's not like a cedar tree. So, and then it describes the whole chapter on Leviathan, Job 41. So my contention is the Bible is true. God made everything in 6 days. Dinosaurs lived with man. And probably they're fascinating creatures. Every kid I've ever met loves dinosaurs, and it's a great teaching tool. So Satan said, hey, I'm going to use God's creatures to turn people away from God. And you can ask a 4-year-old kid before they can even read, when did dinosaurs live? And they'll holler, millions of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They can't even read yet. Already they're indoctrinated.
Yep. Wow.
That's why we have our Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama, and our website is drdino.com. And our phone number is 855-BIG-DINO. And we hope to build the world's biggest dinosaur here down in Lenox, Alabama, population 35.
That would be nice.
Yes. Wow. Give us that phone number again.
855-BIG-DINO.
855-BIG-DINO. Fine.
Mm-hmm. I'm extension 3. If you got any questions, give me a call.
Randy,
Yes, sir.
what can you tell me about those big dinosaurs?
Well, let's look at some things. There is an old science book called Historiam Animalium in the 1500s that included as living creatures dragons. We've got art, authors, carvings, drawings, legends, old science books, figurines, historical literature, paintings, petroglyphs, and statues all over the world showing that living people saw dinosaurs because they depicted them accurately, which is really hard to do if you've never seen them.
Huh.
We've in Angkor Wat over in let's see, right next to Thailand, Cambodia. There's some fascinating carvings of dinosaurs right next to currently living creatures. Alexander the Great is referenced concerning dinosaurs. There's a Drachenfels Castle in Busenberg, Germany, which means dragon related. There's this dragon horde in England. There's Grindelwald in Germany. The Inuit Indians have some legends about dinosaur related creatures. The Chinese national animal is the dragon. And there's even stories of dragon tamers whose job it was to lead the leader of the country in parades being pulled by dinosaurs. Marco Polo gives reference to dinosaurs. Pliny the Elder in his natural history book references dragons. The Sioux and Dakota Indians reference them. The Cherokee do. There's Worms, Germany, and in Zimbabwe, there's pictographs. Last summer, I went traveling with my wife, and one of the places we went was to Prague. And in Prague, there was a statue of a saint killing a dragon. That same statue we saw in 2 other countries. It's famous around the world. We went in Pittsburgh to Pitt University, and they have rooms in their chapel for different countries. The Russian room had that same depiction in a painting of the saint killing the dragon. So it's fascinating to see that there's a lot of evidence that living people saw dinosaurs. And the scientific evidence that we're finding recently, things like soft tissue with dinosaur bones, you wouldn't expect soft tissue to last for 75 million years. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous.
Right.
But yet there is a soft tissue still attached to the bones.
Dr. Hovind,
Yes, sir.
I know that Hollywood and many of the scientists depict these huge creatures as millions of years old. And I also have read they believe a huge meteorite came and struck the earth and blew them all up. And that's how the Grand Canyon was made, and this and that. What actually killed the dinosaurs?
Well, people. They just like Randy just read off. There are hundreds of legends of people killing dragons for all sorts of reasons. They'd kill them for meat, kill them because they're a menace, a nuisance to society, or people just feel threatened by them. Some people would kill them just to be a hero. Why did they go out and try to shoot Bambi's daddy? Get the biggest one, hang the head on the wall. So I think there's same common sense reason. If it was announced on the evening news that there was a grizzly bear roaming loose in your city, by 6 a.m, every redneck in 5 counties would be out there trying to shoot it to get the reward.
Right.
So the dragons were exterminated by man. Also, if you look at the dates in the Bible, from Genesis 5 and Genesis 10, before the flood, they lived to be 900. After the flood, they dropped off right away to 400, and then 200, and then 100. And today, hardly anybody makes it to 100. Well, that would affect the dragons. They couldn't live as long to get big enough. Some probably couldn't even get big enough and old enough to reproduce, and so the whole species would die out. That's probably a brachiosaur wouldn't make it. I don't know, but they've always lived with man, and either people killed them off, or the new environment after the flood just simply didn't allow them to live long enough.
I always see and read and hear about these dinosaurs, but more recently I've read that it seems that more and more are being discovered here in America, in different parts down the Southwest and so on and so forth. The flood.
I have a good friend who's building a dinosaur park up in New England. He wants to keep it on the down low for now, but he has seen living pterodactyls in the mountains of Arizona, 5-foot wingspan, and intends to capture them and put them in his museum. But I'll bet you $100 if they catch a live dinosaur, if they go to the Congo swamp and catch a live apatosaurus, which I think are still there, and they bring it home and put it in the Brooklyn Zoo, they will put a sign on there that says, "Boys and girls, take a look. One dinosaur survived for 70 million years." It will never enter their mind to question their religion.
No, it's a living fossil. Living fossil. Amazing.
It won't cross their mind.
They have a name for it, living fossil.
Yep.
There's so many of them, it's ridiculous.
George,
They're extinct, but they're alive.
George, you mind if I ask a question here?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, this is for the doctor. Dr. Hovind, let me ask you a question, because I watch your show on YouTube. It's quite educational and entertaining, to say the least. But you were on a show the other day. It had a scientist, and he was claiming the Earth is old, and you had a name, and it might have been offensive to some people, but I think maybe it needs to be said. Do you remember what name you were calling him?
I don't remember that one. I've done 200 debates. I don't remember.
Well, it was
Willing.
well, I think you called him a heretic.
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
and so,
someone,
and why do you think that's an accurate name? Not that I'm disagreeing.
well, if someone claims they believe the Bible, but they teach something that is so obviously contrary to the clear teaching of the Bible, that's heresy. Jesus said the creation of Adam and Eve was the beginning of the creation. Matthew 10:6, Matthew 19:6, and Matthew 10:4. Well, if Jesus said the creation of Adam and Eve was the beginning, and somebody says, "Oh no, dinosaurs died before man got here," I say, "Excuse me, that's heresy."
I'm with you.
The Bible says, 1 Corinthians 15 and in Romans chapter 5, that man brought death into the world. Why does the world have death and suffering? It's because Adam and Eve disobeyed. But according to evolution, death and suffering is how we get ahead. If one animal evolves a little better than the rest of them have to die, or else it takes this good new improved gene and blends it back into the population. So death is the hero of the story in evolution, and death is the enemy in the creation story. These views are polar opposite.
And what's the danger of that?
Well, I asked people all over, I said, if evolution is true, how do you tell right from wrong on any topic?
Right.
I was in a University of Guelph in Canada, and a smart aleck senior anthropology, PhD anthropology student about to graduate with his PhD in anthropology. I asked him, how do you tell right from wrong? He said, that's easy. He said, I decide what's right and wrong. He said, I'm the God of my own universe. I said, I'm glad to hear about that, because I'm going to come shoot you in 5 minutes. He said, you can't do that. I said, yeah, I can. I'm the God of my own universe. I decided you ought to be.
Exactly. But I mean, what's the danger of the Christian guy that says, you know what, I believe in, I believe the Bible, but I also believe in the macroevolution story.
Well, Exodus 20, God wrote on a rock with his own finger the 10 commandments and handed it to Moses. One of those commandments, he said, in 6 days, he talked about honoring the Sabbath, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is. I think that would include all the stars, all the people, all the birds, all the dinosaurs. God claimed he redid it all in 6 days, and he wrote that on a rock with his finger and gave it to Moses. Does evolution fit that theory?
No.
Absolutely not. Exodus 31, same thing. In 6 days, the Lord made heaven and earth. So I don't think the Bible could be more clear or more simple. God made everything in 6 days. Nothing died till Adam sinned. It was man that brought death into the world rather than death that brought man into the world.
Right. And
So
as soon as you start twisting one part, you can start twisting the rest.
Absolutely.
Claiming to be wise, they became fools, worshiping and serving the creation more than the creator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, 2 scriptures come to my mind. I guess we could sum this up by saying this. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.
Amen.
What an awesome responsibility
Yes.
that's been placed upon us. The other one is a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. It's sad to say, I hate to say it, it's unfortunate that we have to say it, but I'm afraid that there are far too many double-minded men in this country and in this world today. I still hear the prophet saying, God looked to and fro for a man that would fill the gap, make up the hedge. Oh God, give us men that will stand on the pure unadulterated word of God. Nothing more, nothing less on his word. I could sit with you gentlemen all day long. You inspire me, you thrill me, you lift my spirits to know that there are men just like Dr. Hovind, Randy Osborne, and Ed Temple. I'm proud to know you. I'm proud even more to call you my friends. Gentlemen, I pray and I trust that you'll all come back on the show again. My prayers are with you. We have our marching orders. The Goliath stands and bellows, but God's people mounts up and marches. Thank you, gentlemen. You truly are the warriors that we need in this day and age. And I don't say that with flattery. I say it from my heart. Thank you so very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen. Wow. The time has just flown by. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Please stay in touch. Dr. Hovind, I'll be all over that YouTube channel.
Okay.
You still do that wacka atheist thing?
Whack an Atheist every Wednesday night. It is fun.
Every every Wednesday night. I got to write this down. Every Wednesday night, whack an atheist. Okay.
We live out in the country. We can't do it live, so we tape it Wednesday night, and it'll be up by Thursday morning broadcast. So Ken Hovind is innocent.
All right.
Ken Hovind official is that YouTube channel. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much.
God bless you.
Randy, thank you, old buddy.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. You keep trusting and serving the Lord.
Yes, sir. And let's stay in touch.
I like that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. What a tremendous show. Ed, I'm going to turn this thing off and then I'll chat with you for a little bit.
You got it.
All right.
Okay.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, go to YouTube, subscribe to, I can't remember what it is, the George Espinlove channel. That's what it is. Subscribe to that. My heart's just been touched one more time by the need, by the challenge, and by the opportunity that God has given us. Tremendous. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and Romans and countrymen, share this. Start your watch parties. That sends it out into your news feed and sends it out to people that we could never reach. Please help us. Please do that. And so until then, we'll be up on the radio tonight. I don't know what exactly is going on yet, but we'll be up there. I guess it's up there. I don't know. We'll be on the radio tonight, live anyhow. So join us there. And look for us around 8 p.m. Eastern time. And so until then, I trust that God will keep you right in the center of his hand. See you later. All right.